Alright, what is up guys? VV back with another video. And in today's video, we got to go over OP-05 sealed priority picks, guys. We got to go over the top picks you should be going for, the stuff you should be looking for if you're trying to build a deck that can win at a pre-release, at a sealed format. Okay, so let's just go ahead and dive straight into it. I have talked about some of these things before, like for example, you know, in my OP-04 sealed format priority picks video, I talk about the 5 main things you want to look for. You're going to need a decent amount of bruisers, you're going to need some blockers, counters, removal, and card draw. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're building your deck. Alright, so let's just dive straight into it, guys. Bruisers. When I say bruisers, I'm really talking about these vanillas. Like, yes, anything really big like this, you know, this John Giant over here, or anything like the 10-cost Kaido or 10-cost Luffy. Anything that is just going to be a nuisance on the board and hard to KO, hard to take out, hard to bottom deck and remove. Okay, but these 3-cost 5Ks, these are probably going to be a bulk of your deck because they're the most common cards. Right, guys, when it comes to the sealed format, when we're talking about limited format, you're not going to have access to the full you know, set of cards. It's just whatever you open on that day. So you have to, you know, pick and choose wisely, take what you can get. So getting a 5-cost 7K, for example, in NOLA right here, or a 6-cost 8K, or this is a common, by the way, guys, John Giant, common, 8-cost 10K. Put every single one of those you can in your deck, unless you somehow get like 7 or 8 of them. That might be too many. Okay. So next up, we got blockers. Blockers here, just you're going to want a decent amount of them. I will say this, in OP-05, there were quite a few blockers. And I mean, there were quite a few commons, uncommons, and rares. And I think even some even higher rarities back here. So any kind of blockers you can get. As far as the number goes, you know, there's 40 cards in a sealed deck. So I would say somewhere around, I don't think 10 blockers is too many, to be honest, guys. Especially if it's these bigger blockers, these 5-cost 6Ks that double over as bruisers. If you can get your hands on those, by all means, snag these. This X-Drake and this Jinbei over here, these are really high priority picks. And if you do get a Eustace Kid, yeah, sure. I actually don't think it's as strong as these other two in sealed format. Like, yeah, if you're building a purple deck, of course, you know, Eustace Kid's probably going to be better than Jinbei 9 times out of 10, right? Because you're going to have Dawn, you know, Dawn minus interactions built in. But in a sealed draft format, you might not have access to all that. Real quick, this card, Monet in the front, really powerful. 3 costs, 1,000 power, 1,000 counter. Blocker, on block, rests up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. That is going to be really nice for dealing with your opponents attacking into your characters or attacking into your leader, whatever you name it. And we'll talk a little bit about leaders in the end. Jinbei is nice as well, guys. Check this out. 5 costs, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter, blocker, and on opponent's turn, if you have 10 Dawn cards on your field, he's a 7,000 power blocker. Really powerful. And X-Drake as well. This is a top 5. It's not a top 5 searcher. It's a top 5 placer. However you want to say that. It's like, okay, so on play, you're going to look at 5 cards from the top of your deck and arrange them in any order you need to, or you can bottom deck them if it wasn't what you were looking for. 5 cost 6K, 1,000 counter blocker. This card is excellent. X-Drake is excellent. Very high priority pick, but it is a rare, just to give everybody a heads up. Next up, counters. You're going to need a decent amount of 2K counters. I would say the more the merrier, especially some of these 2K counters coming out now, guys, like any kind of one-legged toy soldier, this Gart back here that cycles cards, this Usopp up here, which can rest a 4 or less if you have 8 Dawn and you're attacking. That's just a nice 3-cost 4K with the 2K counter built in. You attach 1 Dawn, he swings for 5, and then you're resting down characters if you're at 8 Dawn or more. Just really, really solid card here. Same thing with this card back here. Excuse me. I forget her name. What was her name? Koala. Yeah, Koala's a 2-cost 3K, 2K counter with on play minus 3,000. Right? Just gives minus 3,000 for the turn to one of your opponent's characters, but it does require your leader to be Revolutionary Army. Again, we'll talk about that at the end, but you'll probably be able to go specific leaders for this if you need to. Like, yeah, you can go Revolutionary Army, or I think you can also go the multicolored Luffy that counts as like any leader type. And I think some places are even kind of forcing that. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comment section below, but we'll talk about leaders more in the end. Okay, and any kind of solid counters like this, you might want 1 or 2, or excuse me, 1 or 2. It's a rare. If you can get your hand on a because the side of justice will be whichever side wins. If you can get your hand on that event, that is very solid, because the trigger is good as well. Trigger rests up one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 4 or less, and it's a 0 cost, trash a card, plus 3,000 counter. Excellent, excellent stuff here. Same thing over here, Stick of Meteora. Up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 4,000 power during this turn, and KO one of your opponent's rested characters with cost 3 or less. Trigger, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a, opponent's rested characters with a cost of 5 or less. Sorry guys, I gotta slow down. One-legged toy soldier is just outstanding. We'll talk about that more at the end. -3 cost is really big right now. For example, everything we're looking at right here outside of Sabo. Sabo's pretty nice here. He doesn't have a counter, but he is a 6 cost, 7,000 power character that has on play KO up to 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost with a total power, not cost, with a total power of 4,000 or less. Very, very important for early board removal, because even if you just KO one character that's 4,000 power or less and establish a 7k body, that's better than nothing. Same idea with Gidatsu here in this Thunderbird, because so Gidatsu is a 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter character, and then Thunderbird is an event, and they both have the same effect. Main / on play, right, for both of them. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards, and activate main for the trigger as well for the Thunderbird. This on curve is incredible, guys. I'm just telling you right now, playing Gidatsu and popping a 3 or 4 cost just feels so good, guys. Because imagine if they played out, on turn 2, maybe they played out one of these 3 cost 5Ks, and then on your turn 3, you follow up with Gidatsu. You pop the 3 costs they just played, and now you have a 5 cost 6K with momentum. It's just outstanding. Last but not least, over here, we will talk about these a little more in the end, but Borsalino bottom decks of 4 cost or less. Houndblaze bottom decks of 2 cost or less. There are some combos you can use that are going to make that even stronger. Next up, we got card draw. This is a little, there's not a lot of it in this set. I feel like not a lot of really strong card draw. So Dalmatian and Hina might be top priority picks whenever you can get your hands on them. If you see it pop up, just snag it. And there's a lot of good blue stuff in this set, guys. Let me check Hina's rarity while we're talking about her, because that is going to be a card. If as many of those as you can get, you should. It's rare. Dalmatian as well. So Dalmatian is a 4 cost, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter character. So that's already decent on curve. But on KO, draw 1 card and place 1 card from your hand at the bottom of your deck. This is going to allow you to cycle through the stuff you don't need. Basil Hawkins, very solid. 4 cost, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter blocker. So this is kind of everything we need. And then on block, draw 1 card if you have 3 or less cards in your hand. And then this character gains plus 1,000 power during this battle. So think about it. You can block with this, draw a card. I mean, and potentially get out of the attack if he gets to 6,000 power, if you were able to on block to draw a card and gain plus 1,000. Actually, the more I read it, on block, draw 1 card if you have 3 or less cards in your hand. Then this character gains plus 1,000 power during this turn, or during this battle, excuse me. So someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you get the plus 1,000. Is the plus 1,000 only if you draw a card and have 3 or less cards in your hand? Or is it just period? Someone help me out in the comment section below if you know. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Also, if you're going to run a multicolored leader, this 5 cost, Let Us Begin the World of Violence, is outstanding. First of all, the trigger, if your leader is multicolored, just draw 2 cards. Just straight up Sanji's pull off. And then main, if your leader is multicolored, draw 1 card, then return up to one character with a cost of 5 or less to the owner's hand. So it could be your own character for utility or your opponent's character. Really powerful. Okay, now I'm just going to blitz through some of these. You don't even have to hear what I say. Just understand that these cards you should be looking for in the draft. These are very, very solid cards. Most of them are going to be uncommon and higher. Some are going to be commons, but a lot are going to be uncommon and higher. Chalk up here at the top left. 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. Dawn times 1, activate main. Give up to 2 rested Dawn cards to your leader or one of your characters. So this is just giving you extra value every turn. Very powerful. 1k counter, 5 cost, 6k, excellent. Virgo back here, 3 cost, 4,000 power, 1k counter. Dawn times 1 when attacking. KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 3 or less. This is just great. 7 cost 8,000 pounds. 7 cost 8,000 power Rosinante. On your opponent's attack, once per turn, pay 1. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less. This guy's a bully, especially in sealed, guys. Definitely check this card out. Try to get it if you can. Next up, let me see, what was this guy's name? This is... I can't even remember his name, guys. I do apologize. I got it right here, though. This is Gladius. Gladius is activate main. You may rest this character. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less. That's just good for what it is. Otherwise, it's a 5 cost 6k with a 1k counter, so it's got utility. Buffalo, 3 cost 4,000 power, 1,000 counter when attacking once per turn. If you have 2 or more rested characters, set up to one of your rested characters with a cost of 1 is active. This is going to be okay if you run low to the ground. There's quite a few little 1-cost cards that are part of the Don Quixote Pirates type, and there might be a few others too randomly, but overall this card's not as good, but it is at least a 3 cost 4k, 1k counter. But overall, the more I'm thinking about this card, probably not. Next up is Isho, 6 cost 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. This card is excellent, guys. It's a little understated for its cost, but here's why. Look at the on-play effect. Up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 7 or less cannot attack until the start of your next turn. So that shuts down most cards in a draft. Next up is Ulti, 4 cost 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. On play, if your leader is multicolored, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and add up to 1 card to your hand. Then place the rest at the top or bottom of the deck in any order. This card is, if you're going to run a dual color leader, a multicolored leader, or if you're having to run Luffy, whatever the format is you're doing, this card is insane. It's just absolutely incredible. 4 cost 5k, 1k counter, outstanding, guys. 3 cost 4,000 power, 1,000 counter in Azuma. If you have a character with 7,000 power or more, other than this character gains rush. So you see what's going on. You can't buff him to get the rush, but if you buff another character or have a character 7k or higher, he has rush. So this is a nice beater card for sealed. Next up, John Giant, we already talked about, just a huge body. 5 cost, 6k. This is, let me get over to this cards right here. There we go. Okay, so this first card up here is Bastille. He's a 5 cost 6k with a 1k counter. Dawn times 1 when attacking, so he swings for 7. Place up to 1 character with a cost of 2 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. Then 6 cost 7k, Hacha. He doesn't have a counter, but he does have a slightly better version of what we just saw. He has Dawn times 1 when attacking, return up to 1 character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. So it is to hand. I guess it's not technically better, but it's just about as good, and it's a bigger body. The only thing it lacks is the 1k counter. Next up, Robin over here is a 4 cost 5k, 1,000 counter. On play, if you have 8 or more Dawn cards on your field, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of, it's cut off. Hang on, I got it right here, guys. With a cost of 3 or less. So still very solid. Chopper Iman, Chopper down here, 2 cost 3k, 1,000 counter on play. If you have 8 or more Dawn cards on your field, set up to one of your purple Straw Hat type characters with 6,000 power or less as active. So if you do get stuck with something like Robin over here, or did we look at, I don't think we've looked at it yet. There's another, yeah, we did. I think we did. Where is it? This guy, Usopp down here, stuff like that. If you get stuck with one of those cards, he could be decent. Riku, he is a 4 cost 5,000 power, 1,000 counter blocker. That alone is good. The on play and on KO have to do with Dressrosa type characters, so it's not incredible in sealed, but it's still it could be decent. Who knows what you run into in the in your card pool. And then you have Dragon Claw, 2 cost counter. It's a 4k counter, and if you have 15 or more cards in your trash, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. You probably won't hit that 15 cards in the trash clause, but it's still a 2 cost 4k. We'll take it. Okay, then we have Inel, 7 cost 7,000 power rusher. Sorry, it's not centered, guys. I had to rush this video out. My apologies. But this is a 7 cost 7,000 power rusher with the ability to trash a card from your life to to prevent KO or removal of any kind, unless your opponent has a Monkey D. Luffy on the board. Or I think it also, if you do as well, if you have a Monkey D. Luffy or your opponent does, it will cancel out that once per turn effect. You can't use it. Next up is Ohm. And this combo's with Holly down here. It's a 4 cost 5k, 1k counter. that has, if you have 2 or less life cards, this character gains plus 1,000 power. So if you're at 2 life or less, this is a 4-cost 6k with a 1k counter. That's a vanilla. But at the same time, it has on play, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, and then you'll reveal up to 1 holly and put the rest back in the bottom of your deck in any order. So if you can get some hollies and get Ohm, that synergy would just be so incredible in a sealed format, where like getting momentum like that could even potentially just like win you a game by itself. But he is a rare. Just to give a heads up, Ohm is a rare. Next up is 200 million volts Amaru. This card is just really frustrating to deal with when you're on 1 life or less, because you're going to give your leader or character plus 3,000 and then tap down a 4 or less on your opponent's side. And then it has the trash 2 gain a life trigger. Satoru up here, I think his name is. Let me make sure I get that right. Satori, excuse me. Satori up here is a 5-cost, 5k, 2k counter, which is already good enough, but it has the trigger to play the card from your hand by trashing a card. So really, really powerful synergy here. A great 2k counter, but it is a rare. Next up is Amazon. This card is actually very frustrating because it kind of stops the first few attacks. It is an uncommon. So 3 cost, 0 power, 1,000 counter. On your opponent's turn, you may rest this character. Your opponent may trash 1 card from the top of their life cards, or if they don't, then you can give up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards minus 2,000 power during this turn. So you see where that becomes very frustrating, very annoying, because even if they attack it and KO it, well, it just ate up 2 attacks in 1 turn, right? It just nullified 2 attacks. So 3 cost. This is going to be great to get you into the late game, where you can drop down your huge beaters in these bigger cards here, like the Sanji or the Giant or the Nola. Okay, or anything bigger you could have gotten, like a 10 cost Kaido back here. My apologies, guys, I forgot to mention him. So Kaido is a 10 cost 12k, and he has, excuse me, draw 4 cards if your opponent has 3 or less life cards. So just a really huge card hiding back there. Okay, and then last but not least on this page, we got Luffy. It's a 10 cost 12k. This is the skip a turn Luffy. On play, Dawn minus 10. And then, where is it? Place all of your characters except this character at the bottom of your deck in any order. Then take an extra turn after this one. Activate main once per turn, pay 1, add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck, and set it as active. So it has ways to get Dawn back if you're not able to KO them in that next turn. Okay, so let's talk about some combos real quick that you should definitely be looking out for if you get these in your card pool. And some of these are rare, some of these are common, some of these are uncommon. These are just cards to look out for. Okay, first of all, Pell at the top left here. This card is just absolutely incredible for a sealed format, because it has, you know, when attacking, minus 2,000 power during this turn. So, you know, it's a 3 cost 4k, 1k counter. Attach 1 Dawn to swing for 5, and give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. It is a common, by the way. That is a common card, if I'm looking at this correctly. Yeah, that's a common. Okay, just really, really nice card. That can turn on Nika Robin down here, which can on-play K up to one of your opponent's characters with a 1,000 power or less. Bartholomew Kuma, K up to one of your opponent's characters with 2,000 power or less. And this one has trigger if your leader is multicolored to play this card. And then you have tons of other ways to reduce cost as well. In the new 2-cost Fire Fist, 2-cost Gamma Knife, and 4-cost Brook. This is 2 cost. So Fire Fist gives minus 4,000. Then if you have 2 or less life cards, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 0 power or less. Just really nice utility. Trigger, activate main. Gamma Knife, 2 cost, Dawn minus 1. Give up to one of your opponent's characters with minus 5,000 power during this turn. And then trigger to add a Dawn card and set it as active. And then Brook is a 4 cost, 6,000 power on play. If you have 8 or more Dawn cards on your field, so later in the game, give up to 2 of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. Really nice utility, and it's a 4 cost 6k, though it does lack counter. Last but not least, down here we got Lindbergh and Morley. These are just really solid characters that get additional effects when you're attacking the character is 7,000 power or more. Lindbergh can KO a 3,000 power or less character, and remember with Pell you'll be able to minus 2,000 more, or with any of these events you'll be able to minus, you know, further their power. And then Morley has, if this character has 7,000 power or more, your opponent cannot activate blocker during this turn. And both of these are, if your leader is multicolored, you can trigger them into play by trashing a card from hand. Really powerful. Really, really powerful. And I am sorry that I cut off their numbers here, but they're both 5Ks. The Morley is a 3-cost 5K, and the Lindbergh is a 4-cost 5K. So really powerful. And then the last combos I want to talk about real quick, these are the cost reduction ones. There's not a whole lot to say other than, you know, just like with red, you have power reducers and then you have power poppers. Same thing is true with black. You've got these black, or excuse me, with black, with these cards here, you have ways to lower cost and then ways to drop people based off cost. So I'm just going to read their names and just kind of give a quick overview. One-Legged Toy Soldier and Hakuba are pretty much the only ways to reduce cost in this set, other than these two Celestial Dragons down here. But these require you to have no characters in play that are not Celestial Dragon. So in other words, if you played Lucci with only this one card down, it would not work, because as soon as this card enters play to try to use its effect, this effect turns off. That gives them -4 to cost. So both these guys, they're really powerful, but they don't work with characters. However, they do work with all these events up here in stages. Check these out. Halt Couture Patchwork. This is a way to lower cost. It can -3 to a cost, and then if it's a 0, it can make it where it cannot activate next turn. Actually, I'll just read the card for you real quick, just to make sure I don't butcher that. Yeah, so Haute Couture Patchwork, this card right here, the 1-cost card, it's a Dressrosa card. Give up to one of your opponent's characters -3 cost during this turn. Then up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 0 will not become active in their next refresh phase. And then trigger, draw 2, trash 1. Hound Blaze is a 2-cost that gives you +3000 power, just like 200 million volts on Mario right here. And they both do similar things. They both give +3000 power for the turn, but then they have different stipulations. This one is if you have 2 or less life, or excuse me, Amaru is if you have 1 or less life, then you can tap down a 4 or less. But Hound Blaze is just hitting a 2 or less and bottom decking it every time. This blue card right here that costs 8 is really interesting, especially if you can get some these dragons down here, St. Rosward and St. Charlos. By the way, St. Charlos is a 3-cost, 0-power card, and Roswald is a 5-cost, 0-power card, just to put that in perspective real quick. But you can combo those with the cards we just said, you know, any of those event removal or tap down or bottom deck cards. But real quick, this one in the middle here, or close to the middle, it's a Waste of Human Life with Kobe crying in it. And it is a main. Place all characters with a cost of 3 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. Then you and your opponent trash cards from your hands until you each have 5 cards in your hand. Trigger, bottom decks, all 2 or less cards. Place all characters with a cost of 2 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. So it has a mini effect. This is actually very good, though, in conjunction with Rosward or Carlos. So really, potentially really powerful if you're going for a really late game deck. If, like, say you busted a ton of these, you know, Sanjis and John Giants. That would just, you know, be really, really cool. But this is a rare, or excuse me, this is a common. And the Rosward guys, the Celestial Dragon dudes, they are common and common. So all 3 of these are actually common. That would be really interesting to try out in a draft. If anyone tries that, please tell me how it goes. I'm actually curious. And then we got, we already talked about Thunderbird. Birdcage is a 5-cost stage. Let me read that for you because it is a little bit complicated. Give me just a second to bring it up, guys. I'm sorry, I had to whip this entire slideshow together really quickly, guys. I was running out of time. My apologies. Okay, so Birdcage is a 5-cost. If your leader is Don Quixote do Flamingo, all characters with a cost of 5 or less do not become active in your opponent's refresh phases. So remember, if you're running the red-purple Luffy, you actually get that leader's effect, even though he's not Don Quixote do Flamingo. And then second of all, here's the other nice part about it. It doesn't matter who your leader is. The end of your turn effect is, if you have 10 Dawn cards on your field, KO all rested characters with a cost of 5 or less, then trash this stage. So you'll be able to still use the end of turn effect, no matter who your leader is, on 5-cost or rested characters. And last but not least, we already talked about Let Us Begin the World of Violence. Okay, so just to finish up, just to talk about some leaders, these are just some really cool options you have access to. Well, excuse me, if you have access to them, these are really strong leaders for sealed events. Inel is just really hard to punch through that last little bit of life. It's way easier to pull off in a sealed format, but it still can you know, it can go off every single turn technically. So it does have that potential to be very, very frustrating. Same thing with Charlotte Linlin, the black and yellow leader. This leader, anytime you can gain life in sealed or limited, it is just really, really strong, right? It is very, very strong. So I do actually recommend GARP because of what we have that we looked at over here. There are a lot of cards, guys, that go off of cost. Every card you see in here either deals with cost or you know, does an effect based off cost or lowers cost, like in these top two and these bottom two. So, you know, there's a lot of room for speculation on GARP if you get enough removal. I do think it could be decent. Maybe not, but you know, it's just something to think about. This would be the lowest on the totem pole of all these leaders. Newgate's just a 6,000 power, 6 life leader. That's always worth messing around with. Zorro and Eustace Kid are classics when it comes to sealed. And then Blue Crocodile is just very solid as well. Being a 5,000 power, 5 life leader, that can don -4 to bounce 5 costs or less to the owner's hand, which, by the way, would be very interesting running something like these Celestial Dragons. I think running these Celestial Dragons with as much removal as you can possibly get your hands on could be really interesting with Eustace Kid or Crocodile, because you just bottom deck or KO or bounce anything in your way and then just run every single thing over with your leader, just constantly, you know, basically just put them on a clock. So anyway, really interesting. You know, a lot of potential there. I'm not saying you should go for that. You have to play according to what hand you've been dealt, especially in sealed, what cards you've randomly gotten. But you know, the big boys to look out for, of course, is 10 cost Luffy, 8 cost, as many of these 8 cost John Giants as you can get your hands on. Any card on this page, the 10 drop Kaido. Those are your, you know, the big dogs. Same idea with Gadatsu, Borsalino. These are just really high value cards, especially in a draft. Okay, all right, well, guys, I hope you all enjoyed that. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to participate in some OP-05 sealed tournaments early on, but things have gotten a little bit busy in my personal life, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to or not, but we'll see. I'm going to try my absolute best to. So, all right, guys, hope you all enjoyed, and yeah, until next time, guys, peace.